The following stories are part of a series. If you've missed the previous videos, I recommend you watch those. Or if you just want to jump into this, feel free. I'll have a link in the description to the previous videos. And let's begin. It was always sad for me to see the older people living in the asylum. Ones that had been there since the truly bad days. Most were quiet and stared out their windows, never uttering a sound. We called them the Walking Dead. Truly, I think deep inside, if anything was left of their brains, they wanted to die. They had no family that cared, and they were just left here until they did eventually rot. Bertha was one of the older women who was classified as a Walking Dead, but really was just quiet. She would sit outside of her room in her wheelchair and watch. She kept it all in her head and was fearful of nothing. I always wondered why she was there. I would walk by and she would be following me with her eyes. I would give a gentle hello and she wouldn't respond, only continue to stare until I was out of sight. One day I decided to try to have a conversation with her. I started simple. "How are you today, Bertha?" I asked. She looked up at me and there was a silence for a good while, until she finally spoke up. "Terrible." She turned her head away quickly to the side. I took it as a sign I probably should just leave her alone. But of course, me being me, I couldn't. "I'm sorry to hear that. Is there anything I can help with?" Hearing this, she chuckled a bit and looked back at me. "Sure. Go find my husband and put a bullet in his brain." I was taken aback by this comment. Honestly, it scared me, because the look in her eye when she said it made me realize she was dead serious. "What did he do?" I asked, half fearing the answer but half wanting to know. "He didn't like me much after I had our second child. I was getting old and ornery," he said. "He told me that I was getting crazy, and he loved me too much to let me stay this way. So he sent me to this place so I could be hidden away. I'm sure he's with a younger, more attractive woman and the kids think I'm some lunatic they can't visit. I just want to see my children once. Is that too much to ask?" Then she burst into tears and covered her face. All I could think was how awful her story was. I wasn't sure what the husband's side was, and one thing I learned in the asylum was to not generalize. Some of the patients were incredible liars, and if you believed all of them, you'd end up very confused. "I'm sorry, I wish I could help, but I can't kill people. Maybe I can help find your children." She smiled with delight. She told me their names, Gerald and Katrina, and if I could find them, she would be so happy to finally see them again. That night I looked in the phone book for their names. Sure enough, I found one of them was still living in the area, so I phoned him.
"Hello?
"Yes, is this Gerald?"
Yes, it is. Who am I speaking with?"
The voice asked, a bit cautious of a telemarketer. "I'm Bill and I work at the asylum your mother is at, and I just wanted to inform you she wishes to see you, and if you were comfortable coming to the asylum she would appreciate the visit." There was silence on the other side. Then I heard some whispering before Gerald finally came back to the phone.
"Bill, I'm sorry to waste your time, but our mother is in the asylum because she is not well."
I wanted to reason with him, but I knew it wouldn't be successful. "That's fine. I just wanted to give you and your sister the opportunity to see her." There was more silence before he said,
"I don't have a sister."
He sounded hurried now. Then he continued,
"Bill, my mother was diagnosed with having delusions. She attempted to kill my father because she said he was stealing bubblegum from her brother's store. She's insane. Please keep yourself safe and stay away from her. Thank you for your concern and the call. However, I will not see my mother. Your call has confirmed she is far too insane to have a genuine conversation with."
Then he hung up. I was left with a mixed bag of feelings. What could I tell her? And who should I believe? I knew she could be dangerous, but I wasn't sure how bad she was. The next day when I went in, I saw her in the hall, and when she saw me, she had so much joy on her face. "Oh, Bill, did you talk with my children? Did you talk to my Gerald and my Katrina?" My face went sad. "Mrs. Bertha, Your children are very busy people and they wanted you to know that they think of you, but can't come to visit at this time." I was trying to let her down easy, but I saw all over her face a look of sadness and anger. "Bastard husband! How busy can 2 children be? It's he who is keeping them from me." She wheeled herself over to a window and looked out of it. I felt bad, but I didn't know what to do. I started walking away when I heard a nurse scream, "Bertha!" When I turned around, I saw her standing on the windowsill, trying to break the glass. The nurse grabbed her and I ran back to her as fast as I could. "Let me die! Let me fucking die!" She screamed in a voice deep and angry. "I'm old. I'll never be leaving this hellhole. Just let me die!" I got there and grabbed her, but found her will stronger. Finally, she punched clear through one of the glass panes. She grabbed a shard and went after the nurse and I with it. I grasped her hand with the shard and tried to keep her from stabbing me. Down the hall, the nurses began to flood the hall. Bertha saw this and said out loud, "Let me go, Bill. It's time." Her inhuman power for someone her age pulled against me and she brought the shard of glass to her stomach. "Oh, happy dagger. There rust and let me die." When she said it, she thrust the glass into her stomach and she pulled it out and back in. I tried to fight her, but she was much too strong and got in 5 stab wounds before the others arrived. She now fainted from blood loss but was rushed to receive treatment, but died rather quickly. After the incident, I looked at my clothes with all her blood all over and couldn't help but feel tremendous guilt. No one ever asked me why she was on the sill. Everyone just assumed no one was paying attention to the seemingly walking dead woman. No one expected her to do any of that, nor expected her to be strong enough to even resist the people around her. She was ignored. She was lonely. I made the mistake of telling her that her children couldn't see her. There are a few things I don't understand. Why she would say she had 2 children but she didn't, and what really happened to cause her to come to the asylum. I'll never know the answer, but one thing that worries me is her younger daughter. It could be nothing, but whenever I hear the name Katrina, my heart stops. Some people wonder how I got away with the things I did. There was one patient I hated and was happy to see gone. This patient was so horrible that when it was over, every doctor had a new respect for me. Looking back, in a way, I feel guilty. Like maybe they were suffering, but at the time I could not stand them. December 29th, 1971, she entered the asylum. Everyone knew about her because she was all over the news. She had been arrested for literally eating someone alive. Not like their face or just a little nibble on the arm. She tore someone's abdomen open and began to eat everything raw. No one wanted to work with her. Nurses went in together with a security guard and never turned their backs on her. For the first few weeks, a guard was placed over her mouth and she would be tied down. There was no taking a risk this time. Honestly, I don't think the doctors knew what they were going to do with her when they took her in. After a month, they finally figured it out. They wanted her to start working on eating real human food. They wanted to figure out what was wrong with her, so I was put in charge of feeding her. I was supposed to feed her different dishes and record if she liked one or the other better. God damn it, she freaks me out. I sat down in a chair in the head doctor's office. "Bill, we need you now more than ever before. If you do this, I will be forever grateful. If we can cure cannibalism, just think, we are unstoppable." At this point, I was still naive and bought into this ridiculous lie. Truth was, this is the first patient I think no one could do anything for. Not because her insanity was too bad, but because she honestly seemed completely and totally sane. Besides the flesh-eating bit. My first encounter with her was simple. She surprised me because I was expecting a totally insane monster frothing at the mouth like a dog and barking at the entrance, but instead she had brown eyes and short blonde hair that was curled up at the ends. She had clear skin and was pleasing to the eye. Her body was slim, but she was almost athletic looking. She did not look like someone who would do what she did. A guard was standing behind me to keep me safe with his hand always on his gun, ready to pull it out. "Beth," I have been told to start making your meals, to help you learn what good food is again. This is roast chicken with couscous, and I made you broccoli with a creamy cheese sauce. It's simple but very good." It did not take long. She grabbed the plate and began eating politely. "This is very good, doctor. I do enjoy the roast. Did you add rosemary? I do taste a hint of honey glaze as well." This unnerved me. There's nothing worse than a patient who is perfectly normal. The hair on my neck stood up. For some reason, my fight or flight response was kicking in. "I'm not a doctor. Just call me Bill. And yes, honey glazed. I did stuff it with rosemary and some other spices," I said quickly. She continued eating slowly while staring at me and the guard the whole time. When done, she handed me the plate and stood up. "Good day, Beth. I'll be back tomorrow with another meal." I never turned my back on her, and when I left and shut the door, I felt the hand of the guard on my back. "Relax, Bill. You're going to be fine." A few days went by with nothing. Then the weekend came and went. On Monday, I decided to cook a sausage. I'm not big on sausage. They tend to give me heartburn, and I've never been a fan of the amount of sodium in them. I was told to be diverse, though, and try to introduce as many foods as possible. So far, she loved everything, and while this might seem like a compliment, I was starting to think it was a problem. The sausage was served with caramelized onions, carrots, beets, and peppers. I walked into her room and served her and observed. She began to eat the sausage first, looking at me the whole time. She didn't use the knife this time, just picked it up with her fork. Then her eyes darted towards my regions, and she bit down hard on the sausage, making a crunching noise. "Very good, Bill," she said, chewing, a bit of the juice dripping down her face, but she didn't wipe it away. "How did you know that sausage is my favorite? They said the lining is made of intestine, but who can tell the way you cook them?" She darted a glance at the guard who always had his hand on his gun. When she was finished, I actually sprinted out, not even saying goodbye. As we left, I walked a bit with the guard and then stopped in the middle of the hall and turned to him. "What just happened?" I needed a minute to process. The guard chuckled a bit. "I think she wants you." He tried to joke, but I gave him a glance. The worst thing is she doesn't deny anything. She's in total control over all of us right now. We all fear her, and that is her issue. She's controlling, and she gets unique meals from me every day. She gets special treatment from the doctors who don't want to give her standard treatment. She doesn't know what suffer. The guard whipped out his gun, pointing it behind me. I turned around and saw Beth in the hallway walking towards us. Even though his gun was out, she continued forward. "Stop!" the guard screamed at her. She finally halted in the halls. "The door was unlocked. I figured I'd come out and let all of you know," she said in a sweet and innocent-sounding voice. "There's no way. I locked it behind me. I swear to God. I know I did," I said out loud. She looked at me and laughed, the kind of laugh that echoes in the hall and bounces back to send chills up your spine. "No, it was unlocked, Bill." I don't know what kind of demon spawn she was, but I knew I locked that door. I soon realized this was her way of telling me she could leave whenever she wanted. We brought her back to her room and I made certain to lock it again. The guard looked at me as we walked away, and we were both as pale as ghosts on a winter night. "Bill, I saw you lock the door." We both made our way down the hall. "She's a witch or a demon, I swear," I responded, and then we said goodbye and I left for the day. Every moment was always leading up to when I would enter her room. My nerves bothered me all day and I was having problems sleeping and eating. I was actually for the first time thinking I'd quit. Something about me feared entering the room or walking by. For a month, life went on like this in the asylum. I'd bring her food and she'd love every piece, and she would show us her power by dark glances and long stares. One day she tested her boundaries. "Bill, tomorrow I want steak, but make it rare, and give me sweet potatoes with gravy using the steak juice. Add chives to the potatoes on the top. I scoffed at her challenge. "That's not on the menu tomorrow," I responded. She gave me a look I can only describe as pure horror. It was not angry, but one that simply stated that she was able to unlock doors. What's to say she couldn't find me and eat me instead? The worst part was I found myself saying, "But I think I can arrange something." Things were getting out of control at this point. I went to the head doctor and explained that she loved every dish, and now she was dictating what she wanted next. "So don't give her that, Bill. Give her grilled cheese. Something sloppy and see what she does." I wasn't in the business of doing what the doctors did. They always did stupid things just to see what the patient's reactions were. Beth was different though. She was a monster inside and was waiting for the right moment to rip me and the guard up. So I realized how this could be the thing that would show her I was in charge and not her. The cop had a gun, so if things went wrong, we were safe. So I entered her room with a grilled cheese, sat the plate down in front of her and smiled. "A joke? How cute. I'm sure my steak is next, presumably." She looked up at me with a smirk on her face. It began to drain when she saw I was smiling back as if we were having a chess match. She looked at the guard who still had his hand on his gun, then at me. "I wonder, what if that gun isn't loaded? What if there's no round in the chamber, or the bullets are blanks?" She stared at the ground. At first he didn't say anything, but I could see the wheels turning. That unlocked door. There's no way she could. He pulled the gun out and unloaded the firearm to check and make sure he had bullets. I've never seen a human this quick, so I will break it down slowly. Beth slammed her fist on the table, breaking the plate apart, grabbed a shard and jumped up to the guard's neck. The guard dropped the gun and the shard pierced his neck and his artery. Blood spurted out and splashed on her face. She grabbed at his gun and then pointed it at me and made for the door. I walked with her and we got to the window, which had a fire escape. She told me to go down it, and we were going to get in my car and drive. I slowly descended down the stairs. She was behind me, pointing that gun. I thought quickly and pretended to twist my ankle, but it was no match for her. She pushed me against the edge and I looked down the 20 or so foot drop. I was being shoved over the edge and I could feel the rusty metal of the old rickety fire escape beginning to bend. "Do you want to die today, Bill? Let me remind you, I don't want to kill you. I want you as my personal cook. So why die here?" Terror came over me and I just did what she asked from here. We made it to my car and she laid in the back seat, and as I got to the guard's gate I could sense her tensing up. "Everything okay, Bill? You look pale." I opened my mouth to respond, but was greeted by a loud bang as Beth shot the guard dead between the eyes. "Drive!" she screamed, pointing the gun to my head. I sped off, my ears ringing loudly. I've never felt so much stress in my body. I was shaking, unsure of where to go or where to turn, but I just kept driving. "Where?" I asked, feeling the warm gun she had just fired on my neck. "Your house. Cook me a real meal, Bill." My heart sank. My wife was home, and I knew she'd become the real meal if I didn't do something quick. I didn't know what else to do, so I drove to my friend's home. I had to protect my wife. I knew this friend had guns and was a Vietnam vet and would be smart enough to do something. I know that sounds horrible, using a vet to save my life, but it was the only thing I could think of. We got out of the car and I walked to the house. It was locked, but the hot gun on my neck made me knock as hard as I could. "Open the door. It's Bill, your roommate." I was hoping this would set him on edge. This should have been her first tip that this wasn't my house. I should have had keys. But I'm so glad she never guessed that. I saw the light upstairs turn on, heard some fumbling, then he opened the door to see the girl pointing a gun at him. I have to say this part was terrifying, yet to this day I am all too happy for this Marine. He brought me and her in and we sat on his couch, the girl standing and pointing the gun at me and him. "So now what, little lady? So you're smart enough to know how to use a gun?" So you'll kill me and my friend here, no doubt. Then what? He said with a smug smile. I'm going to eat you. First your tongue, since you won't shut up. Then I'll rip open your stomach. I'll eat your kidney right in front of your eyes while you're still warm. That's when he laughed and held up his hand. He had no fingernails, and there were scars on each of his fingers where someone had pried them off. Sweetheart, I'm a prisoner of war. All you can do is end my suffering. This was the moment he was waiting for. She ran at him with a gun held high to pistol whip him. He grabbed her hand. A shot was fired at the ceiling and then he slammed his fist right into her pelvis. She doubled over and dropped the gun, and he grabbed her by the neck and broke it. It was over. I began to weep as I covered my face, shaking uncontrollably. My friend dropped the girl and looked down at what he had just done. He was now rationalizing in his head how it was okay to kill, and he wouldn't be in trouble. He picked up the phone and called the police, and I was hauled to a hospital. I was given time to recover, but I was so shaken up. The guard who had been stabbed had never had a chance to live. I was lucky for my friend's training and quick thinking. I still don't know what could have cured her, or what was mentally wrong with that girl, but there was no one in that asylum that was more frightening than her. To this day, I still have dreams of her, and it's something me and my friends have in common. I still feel guilty. I feel like maybe if I'd given her what she wanted, the doctors would have figured something out. But then again, I've learned over the years to not trust these doctors, so I'm not sure they would have found a cure. She wanted to keep me alive to be her personal chef. I ask myself sometimes, what if my friend hadn't stepped in? What if... No, best not to think like that. If you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. And if you would like a chance to have your story featured in an upcoming video, make sure you email it to urmaker6260@gmail.com. And if you would like to help support the channel, as well as get some cool perks or some merchandise, make sure you go check out my Patreon page or my Spreadshirt. I want to thank everybody for listening to this, and also let you know that there will be a few more segments. It's almost done. So make sure you have your notifications on so you can stay up to date. I'll catch you all in the next video, and I hope you have a great morning, evening, night, afternoon, whatever time it is wherever you are at. Bye.